So most people have no idea that ChatGPT, Claude, Meta AI, who uses Meta AI, by the way, if you're out there, reveal yourselves. But that these AI models, there's an entire shadow industry of companies that most of us have never heard of. And one of them just got hacked. Wired just published an article on this talking about how Meta is pausing their work with Mercor. So if you're like me and hadn't heard of Mercor, they are a multi-billion-dollar business that helps other companies create and fine-tune their AI models. They hire thousands of people as contractors to generate training data for their AI models. And their AI models are specific for the businesses that they're working with. For example, maybe a large healthcare company wants their own AI integration in their company. They'll work with a company like Mercor, who will help them build and fine-tune the model using that healthcare company's proprietary data. And they'll tell Mercor their objectives with this AI. And these companies are incredibly secretive. They use code names for projects, and their CEOs don't speak publicly. In fact, if you want a little rabbit hole after this video, pull up the Mercor AI subreddit and you'll see people sharing their experiences, what it's like working with Mercor, the process of getting a job with Mercor. What I've gathered that people use Mercor as a secondary job, a little side job, maybe something they can do from home. And that brings up all sorts of problems that we'll talk about in a minute. Now there's like multiple quote unquote victims in this situation happening. You have the large companies that are giving their sensitive data to a company like Mercor, who is helping them build out this product. And then you have the workers, because a lot of people don't realize that training AI takes humans. It's not totally training itself yet, although, there's lots of news about that. There's real people behind training these models, and they're often not getting paid really what they should be getting paid for how much we're valuing these AI companies at. And now if you glance at the Mercor AI subreddit, you'll see there's someone already talking about how they're starting to get scam calls. There's no proof that their data was out there, and that's the reason they're getting these scam calls, but it definitely sucks for people that were trying to do a second job. And there's also people in there talking about how they're worried that they're using this Mercor AI training the data job as a secondary job, as like a side income to their main job. And if their information gets exposed, well, if that gets back to their main employer, and maybe they could lose their main job because they're not supposed to have a side job. All of this raises to the bigger question of what data was actually in there, what actually got hacked, what actually got exposed. These contractors are handling proprietary AI training data, but what's in that training data? Potentially information about all of us. And we have zero visibility into what these companies collect, store, or protect. We don't even really know who all the companies working with Mercor are. All of this just ties back to the lack of trust and visibility that we can really have in these AI companies, or any company utilizing AI. But that's not good for the shareholders if we focus on all of the data that is being basically stolen from us and then fed into these machines and then getting exposed. Meanwhile, we don't even have all of the answers. There's nowhere exactly to look and say, hey, I know this information is out there so we can stop it. All the more reason to not even have like a tinfoil hat conversation here about your own privacy and why it's important. Because at this point, we just have to assume that the data, the digital data that each one of us is giving off every single day, is likely to be exposed at some point, or maybe has already been exposed. We don't know. And it sucks when you try to basically stay offline and maybe buy a dumb product, a refrigerator that doesn't connect to the internet, a washer and dryer that doesn't use Wi-Fi. But then you have all of your neighbors use Ring cameras, and you walk by and maybe they're recognizing your face and it's stored in their phone and their app, and they're using that for training data and you had no idea. Or flock cameras that have taken multiple hundreds of thousands of photos across the United States while I've been making this video. So if you're like me and hearing about Mercor for the first time, and you feel like an uneasiness about how companies, not even just AI companies, but any companies that are leaning into AI heavily, the situation is a perfect example of the dangers of leaning into AI. And it sucks because oftentimes we don't even know when our data is taken from us, and we don't even know when it was leaked.